From the European Parliament in Brussels, this is Raw Politics. Thank you for joining us tonight, and this is what we have on the program for you. Protest politics. The Yellow Vests prepare for EU elections in a battle for populist votes. Italy versus France. What's really behind the growing war of words between European neighbours? Varadkar warning. Why the Irish PM says Brexit worries could be exploited and lead to violence. Money talks. Nations bicker over dozens of migrants while others buy their way into Europe. And wigging out. British MPs caught on camera questioning a colleague's hair. All right, it is time to meet our panelists this evening. First, we have Ludovic Delory. He's the editor-in-chief of Contrepoint.org. Ludovic, which of these stories are you watching closely?
So we have been following the gilets jaunes from the beginning in France, so I chose this story.
And you continue to do so. All right, joining us as well is Teresa Kushler. She's a reporter with Svenska Dagbladet. It's good to see you again, Teresa, here.
Hello.
Which of the stories are you watching?
Well, I'm watching the gilets jaunes as well,
Sure.
but in Spain, because, you know, the taxi drivers have gone on a general strike in Spain, and they've all put on yellow vests as well. So we have los chalecos amarillos in Spain.
Something that you're working on,
Yes.
possibly.
Yes.
All right. And joining us also is Merlin Gevers from the Gilets jaunes Solidaires here in Belgium. I think I can guess, Merlin, which of the stories you're...
I'm here to protest, so I will take protest politics.
All right, and we are starting with the Gilets jaunes tonight, because from taking to the streets to taking to politics, the Yellow Vest protesters want to ride a wave of momentum in France all the way to Brussels. Now, today they announced plans to run in this year's European elections, and leading the party is a protester Ingrid Levavasseur, a 31-year-old nursing assistant from Normandy, and one of the best-known faces of the Yellow Vest movement in France. Now, she is leading the party known as Citizens Initiative Rally, which hopes to run 79 candidates in the election. And the announcement comes just over 2 months since the Yellow Vest movement began. What started as demonstrations against a proposed fuel tax evolved into a movement dissatisfied with the President Emmanuel Macron and inequality. Well, violent protests broke out and some concessions were eventually made by Macron, including ditching the fuel tax. But now we are seeing that there are no signs of the protesters backing down. All right, let us start with... what's happening? So the Gilets jaunes, starting from a grassroots movement, which you're a part of, to now entering politics. Do you think this is a good idea?
It's kind of difficult for me to. First of all, I want to say that I'm here to speak about my voice, my opinion, and that is very important in our movement, and that's the reason why I think that it's difficult to speak as a representative of the Gilets jaunes movement.
Okay.
And so, you can go in the street, you can express yourself on the medias, but when you're in a parliament, you will have to defend the opinion of a very large number of people who elected you. And you will have to vote for a large number.
So you don't think it's a good idea?
I don't so. I don't think
because
so.
there are too many ideas, you're saying, in the Gilets jaunes movement. Is that what you're saying?
There are a lot of ideas of a lot of things. We are together for two things. The first one is democracy. We think that the democratic system here doesn't permit a lot of people to be heard. The second one is the inequalities. And so we want to have more equality between people.
Okay, I'll go back to you on that point, but I do want to ask you, because you've been observing the Gilets jaunes as well. Do you think this could backfire, as the point he was making? There's so many different ideas and different groups, and can there actually be one leader who can represent everybody?
You said it's basically the Gilets jaunes movement in France is a grassroots movement for protesting against the rise of tax on fuels. After 2 or 3 weeks, the movement has been recovered by political parties, from far left to far right, and by conservative too. So you have been so different movements into this movement, so many revendications that I think, like Merlin, that it's not possible to make 1 or 2 revendications. When the government asks in the Grand Débat National what are the first priorities for the yellow vest in France, they say tax on wealth, referendum of popular initiative. So you have so many
different ideas that they want.
That is not possible to make it one, I think, in a political movement.
Sure, I want to pick up on a point that Ludovic was making when he was saying that, you know, ideas from the far left to the far right. But now there's an association of the gilets jaunes movement with the far right, or Marine Le Pen, you know, from Marine Le Pen supporters who moved to the gilets jaunes. Is that a fair assessment, do you think, of the yellow vest protesters?
No.
Okay.
No, I think it's just like Ludovic said, is everything from the very far right. The old French Communist Party has also registered lists with yellow vests on it. In my country, the yellow vest has been even further to the right than the extreme right. In other countries, there have been anyways. I think the question for me would be not should they do this. The question is, could they do this? Is it possible? We're 4 months from the European election. Well, if you had asked me that a year and a half ago, I would have said, no, there's no time. They won't find the money. They won't find the support. They won't find... But then again, Emmanuel Macron won the presidency and a qualified majority in the National Assembly in a year. So I think anything is possible. It might not just work this very time because of this disparate ideas, but in terms of times, well, you never know.
But actually, what's interesting is when we look at the numbers, because there has been a new poll that shows that if the yellow vests would actually join the European elections, it's going to change the balance between the political parties. Because according to an ELAB survey released yesterday, En Marche and Mouvement Démocratique would get 22.5% of the votes, and 17.5% would back the Rassemblement National that is led by Marine Le Pen. So these are lower than they would if the yellow vest movement did not exist. And the yellow vest movement would take 13%. Les Républicains would receive 11.5%. So it is very interesting that with the presence of the yellow vest, politically, it would take voters from, as you were saying, you know, from the other left, right, and put them all together. The yellow vest movement. Okay, Melanie, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think that in this poll there is one party that is not taken into account, and that's the party of the people who don't go to vote. And that is a party where a lot of people from the Gilets jaunes go. And, you know, to speak about my country in Belgium, we have a movement here, and at the beginning, a very tiny far-right movement wanted to enter in the Gilets jaunes movement, and they were pushed back. Why? Because we don't want to be invested by political parties. We are here to express the voice of the people and not the voice of the parties. And that is very important.
So now that this is happening, they go into politics. Do you think it is a betrayal of the original idea of the movement? If, you know, if Gilets jaunes becomes a political party, is it a betrayal of the movement?
I'm very interested to know how the people of the Gilets jaunes in France will react to that. But I think that they want to express themselves on the streets because they think that you have to change the things. You know, yesterday in Namur, it's a town in Belgium, one person died. And a lot of people said he died from the winter and so on. But we don't think so. I think that he died because of a political system that didn't allow him to live.
Okay.
And that is what we want to do. We want to change things in putting pressure in the economic and the political world.
Okay, following up on that point, I will let Ludovic answer this from a political point of view. But isn't joining the system actually the best way to get the changes that people like Merlin want? Don't you have to be in the system to change the system?
I think it's a trap. A trap for the yellow vest. After the 8th act in Paris, a French deputy asked to Gilets jaunes, are you able to go into politics, to make a real political movement? This is not, I think, an innocent question, because the street was burning, the Champs-Élysées, the protesters have shown their determination. They have burned many radars on French roads. They have destroyed some power symbols in Paris. So I think it's a trap, because when you ask on the Orange movement to go to politics, there is a fringe of the yellow vest that they say, okay, we'll go it. will go to the parliament.
So you think that this is a trap. Now, I want to ask Teresa, do you think that the Yellow Vest movement is more powerful as a protest movement or as a political movement?
Well, I mean, Emmanuel Macron actually did come out after a couple of weeks and told them he would stop the rise of prices of the fuel. He would add some to the pensionists. He would add some. So yeah, it's been a wake-up call, I think, at least for a lot of politicians, because again, whether far right or far left, they are protesting against low pensions, low purchasing power, lower salaries, and they're watching the rich and they're watching all those companies that get away without taxes. And
it did make Emmanuel Macron pay attention. I think it is a wake-up call. And I think just one point to make, that there are some that we spoke to before the show, gilets jaunes supporters, who say that they don't want to be part of that list. So I think that's a reaction that we've also been seeing. All right. Well, things have been getting pretty frosty between France and Italy, with the two targeting each other over everything from migration to the economy. And more recently, the Yellow Vest protests. Here is tonight's You Said It.
History teaches us that anything can happen when people feel deceived, unfairly treated. Despite this danger, my fellow Italian citizens have proved to be very mature. They have not taken the streets or acted violently to express their discontent and their rage. Rather, they have used democratic election to dismiss the old elites and to support those who were suggesting alternative ways to resume the path toward prosperity.
That was Giuseppe Conte of Italy. I do want to ask, I will go to you, Merlam, I want to see the political motivation behind this. What do you think, Teresa, about why he's saying that?
Well, first of all, this is payback time, because Emmanuel Macron said a couple of months back, he talked about xenophobia on the rise in Italy. So he did a couple of remarks that were very, very badly taken in Rome. And now it's a little bit payback time. You know, look what you put yourself into. Second of all, yes, I mean, Salvini and Conte that we heard speaking, and the now infamous Interior Minister Matteo Salvini, they have soaked up the possible yellow vests.
I just want to ask quickly, Merlam, very quickly, because we don't have much time. When he said that Italians are mature, so they don't do that, does it imply that there's an immaturity with going into the streets?
I don't want to be used by a prime minister of a country to make a conflict with another country. You know, there are a lot of very poor people in Italy, and there are a lot of very rich people in Italy. There are great problems with democracy in Italy, and so I think that this person has to solve the problems in his country, and our movement is a movement that tries to change the things and to put pressure on the people who are able to change things.
Interesting point of view. All right, well, the Yellow Vest activists, they are not the only ones who are demanding change. Thousands of students were in the streets of Brussels today demanding action on climate change. Alex Morgan and our team in The Cube have more on this story. Alex?
Make love, not CO2. That's one of the posters that was held up today in slightly stronger words. I won't be showing you them. But these were the scenes posted on Snapchat, filmed by people on their smartphones and uploaded to the social platform from Brussels. Here we are. Il y a du monde, lots of people here. They show vast crowd. We know there were 35,000 students who skipped class today in the Belgian capital to march against climate change. They want politicians to realise the next generation have a very strong message that they want to see real action, and a huge number here. This is the third week students in Brussels have been doing this. Today, as I say, the number's estimated to be at 35,000. A huge crowd. You can see an energetic crowd despite the fact, obviously, it's pretty chilly on the streets there. But I just want to show you some of the posters that were photographed by Greenpeace. Here's two, for example. This one here, this placard, "Make our planet green again," a play on Donald Trump's phrase. And here, this one of the penguins saying, "Soon we'll be able to cook our own feet." So a real sense here, there's an upsurge of anger among young people, among students, about inaction, perceived inaction by the global politicians, particularly at the time of Davos, talking of the global elite, towards this problem. Now, we got two young people who attended the march to send their thoughts about why they did it. First of all, Fleur, she's 17, and this is what she had to say.
And I'm really happy happy that the Belgian youth, took initiative in this matter because it's really important, and I'm really happy that we see that there's a problem we need to solve now, and I really want to support those kids and everybody who supports the initiative. Thank you.
So the idea, we need to act now. Now, Cody, 19, another one of those who attended, and his message here is, we're not going away.
Of Belgium. It's now the third day in 3 weeks that the youth in Belgium is protesting for a better climate. According to the local media, there were 35,000 protesters in Brussels, so it's a success. We will protest again on Sunday and meet at the North Station. We have one message: clean the planet for the future. See you at Sunday. Thank you.
We're back on Sunday. Clean the planet for the future. Now, where did all this begin? Well, actually, it began with really humble beginnings with one 16-year-old in Sweden, Greta Thunberg. She was doing this every single week since August, protesting outside the country's parliament, protesting against climate change. This here from 6 days ago, last Friday, being week 22. Well, she is attending Davos, sleeping in a tent in temperatures believed to be between -15 and -18. She caught a train, she didn't fly, she was trying to show up, if you like, the global elites who took all those private jets. She actually addressing a panel which included figures like Bono and will.i.am, and her message, very clearly, you can't say we need to do more. You're not doing anything at all.
All right, thank you for that, Alex and our team in the Cube. So there is going to be a protest on Sunday. Merlin, you're going to be in that climate change protest. All right, tell us, what is the point and the message of that protest for the young people?
I think that it's like I said, the political world does not take in account all this population that wants a change in our climate system, and they want a change in our climate systems, and a lot of gilets jaunes too want a change.
So the gilets jaunes are joining in.
I don't know if every gilet jaune, but there are people, there are gilets jaunes that are going to go.
And as you say, the point is to put pressure, as you kept saying.
Put pressure and to take in account that the climate changes that have to be done have to be done taking in account that everyone is not responsible of the climate change.
All right, so there you go. There's going to be another protest on Sunday there. And coming up for you on Raw Politics, would you vote for a yellow vest protester, as we just been talking about? We want to hear from you. Your call, our interactive talk show, is coming up, and we'll tell you how to get in touch. Plus, the Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar, he is in Davos. We talked to him about Brexit and renewed violence at the Irish border. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Now, according to the Irish leader, the UK wants to have its cake and eat it too. Now, on the issue of the Irish backstop, leader Leo Varadkar says the only way to avoid a hard border after Brexit is to have a close, if not full, regulatory alignment. Varadkar made the comments in Davos at the World Economic Forum. He spoke to our correspondent, Shona Murray, who is joining us now. Shona, so what did the Irish Prime Minister say to you?
Well, I mean, I suppose if you look at the deadlock in the UK, there has been a shift of focus to Dublin to see if Ireland can do anything to alter the backstop, which is, of course, the legally binding guarantee to ensure there's no hard border on the island of Ireland. And basically, there's been a thought that maybe if it was limited to a few years or if it was changed in some way, it'd be more palatable to the UK. I asked the Irish Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar, about this, and he said no, he'd be standing firm for keeping the backstop within the withdrawal agreement. It, of course, preserves peace on the island of Ireland, and he couldn't exchange that for mere promises from the UK. He also told me about his fears for a no-deal scenario, basically that there could be a resurgence of violence on the island if we had a no-deal. This is what he said to me.
Well, I think particularly when I'm talking to an international audience or meeting people from outside of Ireland, they often talk to me about Brexit in the context of it being a sort of a trade negotiation, about economic issues, about jobs, about immigration, all of which are important. But I think it is really important to explain that when it comes to Ireland, it's about something much more important than that. And that is the peace on our island, the Good Friday Agreement, and protecting the rights of citizens both north and south of the border. And part of the reason why we have peace in Ireland for the past 20 years is that the European Union swept away many of the differences between north and south. And one of our big fears is that as the United Kingdom leaves and takes Northern Ireland with it, those differences will re-emerge, and that will undermine the peace. And part of what I do here in Davos and any time I travel internationally is to remind people of the higher stakes and the bigger picture that affects Ireland. The backstop itself is a means to an end, and the backstop is there to give the people of Ireland, north and south, a legally binding and legally operable and workable guarantee that no matter what happens as a consequence of Brexit, a hard border won't emerge again on our island. And the difficulty, of course, with a time limit is effectively, it's exactly that. It says a hard border won't emerge on your island for 3 years or 5 years or 6 years or 10 years, but after that it might. And that's where the difficulty arises.
But do you not believe the British government and those in the UK that say they do indeed promise to sort this out through trade, and perhaps maybe that should have been the starting point of all of this?
I believe they're honest in their intent, but as has been the case with Brexit really from day one, I'm not sure it's been fully thought through. The only way, in my view, in my opinion, that you can avoid a hard border in the longer term is to have, very close, if not full alignment on customs and on market regulations. And that is a direct conflict with the view that the United Kingdom can go it alone entirely on these issues. And that has never been squared. That circle has never been squared from day one. It is that cake and eat it idea that you can have the benefits of being in the European Union, frictionless trade, open borders, and at the same time have an independent trade policy and take back control of your borders, your money, your law, all of those things.
Are you worried that, outside from the, obviously, obligations under the single market, the resurgence of dissidents, that they may engage again in hostilities in the case of a no-deal scenario?
It is something I'm concerned about. I am concerned about dissident Republican violence in Northern Ireland. There was a car bomb in Derry a couple of days ago. Very lucky that nobody died. Some young people passed by that car only 10-15 minutes beforehand. There could have been loss of life, and that would have been such an enormous tragedy. I don't want to say that that was directly linked to Brexit or that it was directly linked to the 100th anniversary, after all, of the Irish Parliament being founded. But Brexit is now all part of the context. It's one of the reasons why the power-sharing executive, the power-sharing government isn't functioning in Northern Ireland. And it is something that's causing great concern for citizens in the north and also along the border counties. Every day thousands of people cross the border to go to work, thousands of people cross the border to go to college or school. And all of those people are very worried now about what the future holds. Things that they thought had been settled have now been unsettled. And that does create an environment that dissidents can exploit. And I don't think we should allow them to do that.
So there you have it, the Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar very much standing firm that the backstop has to remain within the withdrawal agreement. For anyone who thought, for example, the Irish would feel the pressure from other member states to make sure this withdrawal agreement gets passed. He also making the point there that there could be a resurgence of violence on the island of Ireland if there's continued confrontation over Brexit. And then him making the point that Brexit still hasn't been really thought through, even though it's 65 days to go. The circle, the square of Brexit, the fact that Britain want to have free trade with the EU but break away at the same time, that's really irreconcilable. So we really are nowhere closer to any changes. Tessa.
All right, thank you for that. Our correspondent there, Shona Murray. All right, obviously the Irish backstop is still one of the major sticking points. No movement there. But on the other hand, on this side of the channel, Europe is waking up and preparing for the possibility of a no-deal Brexit. Let's take a look. Still no sign of a Brexit compromise at the end of the rainbow. From the White Cliffs of Dover to Westminster, a battle to shape the UK's future continues to rage.
This deal does not deliver Brexit. As long as that backstop is there, I will not vote for this deal.
To be frank, there wasn't much indication that the Prime Minister is listening to or hearing the concerns of people in Scotland and no doubt across the UK.
Meanwhile, watching on from the other side of the channel, the Netherlands is getting serious about Brexit. Dutch officials revealing they're in touch with more than 250 companies about a possible post-Brexit relocation. And a warning from the Netherlands. The country's hospitals say a no-deal Brexit would lead to a shortage of medicines and medical supplies, which could put patients at risk. With the Dutch importing around €2 billion worth of medical products and medical supplies from Britain each year, it's a sign of growing concern on the continent over a no-deal Brexit. And with me now to discuss this is Brian McGuire of Euractiv, and we're also joined by Judy Curtin-Darling, a British Labour MEP who sits with the SND Group, and Jasenko Selimovic, a Swedish MEP who sits with the ALDE Group. But first of all, I'd like to pick up on what Leo Varadkar was saying. I know you have had experience, in Northern Ireland. The explosions that we saw, the violence that we saw, what he was talking about, is it fear-mongering, or is he right that there could be an increase in such violence?
No, he's absolutely right. And this will not be just Republican dissidents, Irish dissidents. This will also be British loyalist dissidents playing into this narrative as well. We've always said this. There will be blood on the streets in a big way if a border is reintroduced in Ireland. There's no getting away from this. All politicians in Ireland are aware of this, and so this is very far from fear-mongering. This is going to be the day-to-day reality of people again in Northern Ireland if a hard border is introduced.
All right, and Jude, I mean, this is, in terms of the Irish backstop, there is absolutely no movement, it seems. So why is everyone still trying to push a change where there clearly can't be any?
Well, the thing that I find really incredible in the context that we had this historic defeat in the Commons, 230 MPs voting against the deal, is that Theresa May is still trying to please that extreme wing of the Conservative Party rather than moving towards the centre of the Parliament, where actually there's a large majority of MPs who would like to see a sensible Brexit deal emerge. And that sensible Brexit has to address some of the issues that Leo Varadkar highlighted in that interview around a customs union, around regulatory convergence and single market participation. I mean, there is a potential for a majority in Parliament, but she's refusing to negotiate on that basis because it would mean giving up her red lines.
Right.
So it's real stubbornness from the Prime Minister, which is causing the situation that we're in.
Jasenko, I want to touch on quickly on what we were talking about, the preparation that's happening on this side of the channel. So you have Netherlands talking to about 250 companies to say, hey, come over here. Are they the Brexit winners, actually?
Well, we don't know, but we have to be prepared for the situation of no deal. This is obviously reality, and it could be reality very soon. So we have to be prepared for that.
All right. We'll stick with a lot more Brexit news and go back to Davos, where political editor Darren McCaffrey is waiting at the World Economic Forum, because there's a lot of comments on Brexit coming from there. He did catch up with the president of Lithuania there. Darren, what did you have to say to you?
Yeah, indeed. As you say, Brexit dominates even Davos. You cannot get away from this never-ending story in many regards. And it came down to this issue today of the extension of Article 50. Now, it has been much talked about, Tessa, at Westminster, that this may well be an inevitability, as the former Chancellor George Osborne described it only the other day here in Davos, that Britain would ask the European Union for that extension. And up until now, the assumption has been that the European Union would almost certainly grant it, at least for a couple of months, not least of all because the Germans have suggested that no deal should be avoided as a priority. And today, the Austrian Chancellor also said that they would be open to that. However, when I asked the Lithuanian president whether she would be open to it, she wasn't necessarily that terribly keen, suggesting that no deal might be better than a prolonged extension of Article 50.
The more we will extend any kind of uncertainty, the worse it will be for both sides. And in that case, even it's better to finish this house sooner, even with no deal or with any kind of deal, because I know that if even worse scenario will come in without a deal, we will start immediately to negotiate with UK on special, narrow, sectorial questions to solve. It will take a few months.
So you almost think that a longer Article 50 process is worse than no deal?
I cannot guarantee this, but what I know that the longer we will drag on both sides in the process, the more damage we will make.
Now, why is this important, Tessa? Well, first of all, it's important because under the rules, every EU country has a veto on whether Article 50 should be extended. So in those circumstances, depending on what is asked for, at the moment, Lithuania may well stop that process. That would have profound results for Brexit. And the reason that it is interesting, I think, to a degree, is because it shows that there are increasing cracks within the European Union when it comes to Brexit and what to do next. As I said, the Germans, with their faltering economy, are determined now to avoid no deal. We heard the polls last week suggesting that there may well have to be a sunset clause on the backstop. And today we heard that from the Lithuanian president. While, of course, the EU got themselves into a bit of trouble yesterday, the Commission suggesting that if there was no deal, there would be a hard border on the island of Ireland, much to the consternation of the Irish. So after 2.5 years of a very united front on Brexit, I think at this stage, potentially this late stage, we are starting to see some cracks emerge.
All right, I'd like to get a quick reaction from you. No deal versus Article 50. This is not a very common statement you hear from the EU.
But the problem is following. This is a very serious question. It might be a question of violence. It might be a question of endangering the peace that the Good Friday Agreement has established. But our problem is that we don't know what the British Parliament wants. There is certainly no majority for anything. Now they said they don't want a deal. OK, fine. What they want? We don't know. So they said, well, let's renegotiate. What? What should we renegotiate? To next year renegotiating without any guarantees that they will give us anything that they can accept? So we are now stuck in a position that
OK, if they don't know what they want, then is a no deal actually the best
This is what is going on. I'm sorry to say, but...
OK. Yeah, what do you think of that? No deal better than an Article 50 extension?
I think that there's no majority in Westminster for no deal. And ultimately, if it comes to it, I would expect that MPs would step in and ensure the unilateral withdrawal of Article 50 before we get to the end of March. If no deal is absolutely the last thing on the table.
Are you shocked at what the Lithuanian leader had said? Or?
No, I'm not shocked, because I can, after so many years of our government acting in a completely irresponsible way and not negotiating really in good faith, I think that it's understandable that there's frustration on the other side. But I hope that after the votes next week in Westminster, it will become clear what exactly there is a majority for in the British Parliament.
Well, Darren, apart from Brexit, there's a lot more topics being talked about at the World Economic Forum, and you have been talking to disruptors. So we continue our disruptor series. Darren, tell us about that.
Yeah, indeed I have. We've been talking to the people here at Davos who are likely to have an effect on 2019, likely to disrupt the status quo in various different parts of the world, in various different fields. Now, today I talked to Maria Ressa. Who is she? Well, she is, according to Time, one of the persons of 2018, and she has been involved in this ongoing battle with President Duterte in the Philippines, who, of course, is seen as rather authoritarian, has clamped down not just on the drugs trade, with allegations that thousands of Filipinos have been murdered since he became president, but also clamping down on media and any dissent against his rule. Maria has been one of the most vocal critics of the president, one of the most vocal journalists using technology, particularly Facebook, to try and take on his administration, much to her own cost, with the possibility that she, later on this year, could end up in jail herself. This is my interview with Maria Ressa. How difficult and how bad is it in some ways for journalists in the Philippines at the moment?
It's incredibly hard, and I think it's happening all around the world. And, you know, starting in November 2017, you saw that cheap armies on social media is rolling back democracy, and you've seen the number of countries go from something like 27 to 48 in a year's time. That's incredibly difficult, and it's like the frog in boiling water. It changes and you don't even know it. So in the Philippines, what we've seen is a drug war that is brutal. It's killed what the police has claimed 5,000 people. They've killed 5,000 people. But there's a special case, they call them the homicide cases under investigation, and that number is over 30,000 people. So this is mincing numbers to try to hide exactly how many people have died since July of 2016. It's alarming to me, and it's alarming that simultaneously that level of impunity is matched by a vitriolic information operations on social media, on Facebook. Starting in July 2016, when the drug war began, anyone who questioned the killings, journalists, news organizations, we all came under attack, and it's systematic, it is exponential, it is meant to silence these questions.
And what are you trying to do to disrupt that, essentially?
We're trying
because you yourself are under pressure from the state.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're trying to fight the impunity on these two fronts. First, by continuing to do our jobs as journalists, shine the light. Second, we can't be credible if you are getting attacked exponentially. I mean, there was a period of time after I did 2 investigative pieces on Facebook on what's happening on social media. I was attacked by 90 hate messages per hour. This is a new form of attack against journalists, and it's psychological warfare. So.
Obviously, technology has to be part of the solution. You have to fight technology with technology degree. But what about yourself? I mean, do you potentially have a prison sentence hanging over you? I mean, do you think it's worth it? The pressure that you are under?
So by doing my job, I could go to jail for up to 15 years. And, the funny thing is, I just take one step, one foot in front of the other. I do my job because I know if I don't, I'll have accepted this. These exponential attacks are meant to pound you into silence. The government's legal cases we're facing, I have 5 arrest warrants, right? I've filed bail. I've posted bail on 5 cases of the same thing. I just don't want to be intimidated. I don't want to be bullied. And I think now more than ever, the mission of journalism is incredibly important, not just for Philippine democracy, but for all democracies around the world.
A really interesting interview there, Darren, with Maria Ressa. Thank you for what you've been bringing us from the World Economic Forum there, and do stay warm. All right, bye, Darren. And we still have a lot coming up for you in Raw Politics. Is it natural or is it a wig? 2 MPs are being called out after they were caught on camera debating their colleague's hairstyle in Parliament, of all places. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now, a new migrant standoff is brewing as a rescue ship carrying 47 people heads towards Malta. The vessel was refused entry to Lampedusa in Italy after spending hours awaiting authorization. All sound a little familiar? Well, that's because it is. Earlier this month, 49 migrants were left stranded off the coast of Malta on 2 rescue boats, while European countries argued about who should take them in. After considerable bickering over 2 weeks, in the end, just a handful of countries agreed to accept the migrants between them, prompting one aid group to describe the ad hoc response as, quote, shameful. All right, still with me to discuss this is Brian McGuire of Euractiv. We also have Jasenko Selimovic, a Swedish MEP with the ALDE group. And we are also joined in this panel by Željana Zovko, a Croatian MEP from the Croatian Democratic Union and with the EPP as well. Željana, I'll start with you. I mean, this story of another boat, another standoff. Here we are again. We're going to take weeks debating who's going to take 1, 3, 5 migrants. Is this what EU policy has come to?
No. I wouldn't think that this should be a policy arguing. The policy should be dealing with this issue at its source. And this is what we are advocating in the European Parliament, to deal with migration issue at the source and to finally focus on the real problem. And
but in the meantime, the people are coming to the borders. Yes, you can deal with the problem at the source, but they're here at the border. So what do you do with them?
Yeah, but you cannot deal with the crisis by provoking crisis sometimes. And what we are trying to stop doing is this preventing this crisis, like making all the time the issues out of this. And the boats that are taking migrants from the parts like Libya, bringing to the countries and then making problems between the countries, it's not contributed to resolving the problem.
I'll ask you that same question. I mean, do we solve the problem at the source, but then in the meantime, what do we do here?
Well, of course, we have to solve it by people coming. People will be coming and will be drowning in the Mediterranean Sea. So we have to deal with these issues. It's shameful that we are not dealing it. It's shameful that countries are playing each other against each other in that battle. And at the same time, we are debating here golden visas. Well, visas that we are giving to people who are able to pay for getting citizenship. So it's shameful. Of course, it's shameful.
Yeah, indeed, we will be talking about that. But first, I want to stick with the fact that as the rescues continue and we have countries bickering over each other, we have, I think, Germany pulling out of the Sophia operation, which is responsible for rescuing the migrants. are they right in pulling out of this operation because they are angry at Italy for not having a solution, basically?
Yeah, but the Germans also said they're withdrawing for the moment. They are prepared to send ships back in the future. But one interesting thing was that they accused the Italians in the middle of this of sending the German ships to the far end of the Mediterranean where there were no smuggling routes and no migrants crossing over as well.
Just to clarify, because the Sophia operation is meant to tackle human trafficking,
yes.
but what they actually ended up doing is saving migrants.
Which they are required to do
Sure.
under international law.
Sure.
If there's life at risk, they're required to save. That's the first priority.
Sure.
Now, when you get them to land, then are they illegal migrants or are they asylum seekers who are entitled to be there? The rules are clear. But we're putting these people back in harm's way for the sake of our own fragile egos when it comes to speaking to our citizens and saying we have a responsibility. Salvini's behaving in an understandable way because Europe hasn't supported them, but Europe's behaving in a shameful way.
And to complicate matters even more, as Jasenko was bringing up earlier, because there are migrants stranded at sea, not knowing where they're going, what's happening next. Others are actually buying their way into Europe, because EU officials warned again this week against so-called golden visas or golden passport schemes that offer non-EU national citizenship in exchange for investment. 20 EU countries have such schemes, while Cyprus, Malta and Bulgaria allow rich individuals to buy passports for between 1 and 2 million euros. Well, here's the Commissioner Dimitris Avramopoulos.
The total number of residence permits granted by member states is unknown due to a lack of transparency and specific oversight of these schemes. We're not here either to name or blame. We are sending a very clear and strong warning alarm.
So we hear that there's a warning on the dangers posed by golden visas, but do you think there is a huge hypocrisy in EU policy when it comes to migration on one hand and others entering here, rich people entering here on another?
No, it's absolutely two issues that we have to deal with, and it is this is inadmissible to have this golden citizenship. I think that this should be checked. This should be really carefully checked, and we should go through all these cases in order not to allow people who don't deserve to come as investors in European countries. But this is a completely different issue from the migration.
So this is a weak spot, but you did link the two.
Well, there is a link between these two issues. They are not similar, but there is a link because countries are saying we don't have a single place for these migrants, and suddenly, well, there is a lot of place. If you are allowed to pay that money, there is a lot of place for you. So there is a link that there is a hypocrisy that is not acceptable. And I'm very glad that the Commissioner said it, that the Commission has come with the report, and I hope it will stop.
Okay, indeed. This is, again, another complicated topic, migration, an emotional topic, whether you're rich or poor. And I think this is an interesting point that you both have brought up. All right, stay tuned, because still a lot more to come on the program. It is almost time for you to have your say, our new interactive show, Your Call. And we're asking, how would you solve Europe's migration crisis? Do have your say using the information on your screen. You call in, our lines are open now, and we want to hear from you. How would you solve the migration crisis? You can also get into the debate going now on Twitter and Facebook. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Now, we've heard from the panel. Now it's time to have you have your say. Stay tuned for your chance to call in and tell us what is on your mind. What are you thinking when it comes to the big stories of the day? You can phone in at 00800 3333 7002. You can also email us at rawpoll@euronews.com. You can see that information on your screen. Let us know what you think. Use the hashtag Raw Politics on Twitter and Facebook. We're monitoring that. And do Skype us. We'd like to see you as well. Connect with us under the username Raw Politics, all one word. And joining me on Your Call tonight is Estonian MEP Yana Tom from the Alliance of Liberal Democrats group. And back with us is reporter for Svenska Dagbladet, Teresa Kushler, and journalist for Euractiv, Brian McGuire. So they'll be joining us tonight in Your Call. And let's take a look at some of the talking points that we will be discussing in tonight's show. So we're asking you the question, would you vote for a yellow vest protester? And we're also asking, is it more difficult for women to lead? How would you solve the migration crisis? So you can see on your screen the three questions that we want to ask you. Let me begin with the first one. Would you vote for a yellow vest protester? Because they started as a grassroots movement, and then now they're intending to run for the European Parliament. I mean, that's an interesting move, an interesting change. The reaction from yellow vest supporters are actually mixed, because some say it's a betrayal. You're joining the very system that you're against. So, you know, we'd like to hear what you think. Do you think, would you be voting for a yellow vest protester if they ran? Right. What other topic we were mentioning on the board there about women? What is that topic?
Well, Angela Merkel has lashed out on the press now because they're commenting on her outfit. She wore the same dress twice and it's all over the news.
Dear.
She says men can wear the same suit for a year and nobody cares. So why these double standards with commenting on women's looks and clothing and hairstyles, etc.? So that's the topic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, is it more difficult for women to be leaders? Are there double standards? You know, yeah. So I think that is the question. All right, Brian, what is this? What other story do we do?
So we've got migration.
Yeah.
We've had European politicians try to solve the migration crisis for years now. It's still on the doorstep.
As we were just discussing as well.
And it's still divisive. It's impacting every election and every election cycle. It's always in the news. So we're asking our viewers today, what would you do? How do we solve this crisis? What message do you want to give to your politicians?
Yeah, perhaps the answer can actually come from you. Maybe you have the solution that the politicians have not actually seen. All right, Jana, you'll be joining us tonight. You will be the politician. People will be asking you the questions. Okay. You know,
I will listen. Maybe somebody will propose better solutions. Yes.
No, exactly. It is so difficult for politicians sometimes. Why is that?
What is difficult for politicians?
It is difficult to find solutions, answers. There's a lot of bickering.
Yes, of course, and it's difficult to find consensus also, and more difficult is to communicate your decision to so to say, ordinary people. We're living here in kind of bubble, of course, and this is a problem.
And especially with 28, well, 27 future countries.
27 and a half, I would say.
Indeed. All right, so do join us. And don't forget, we really want to know what you think on all the topics that we're bringing up. If you have questions, if you have comments. I'm going to bring up that contact information again so you can get calling. So again, that phone number is 00800 3333 7002. The email is right there on your screen, rawpol@euronews.com. Use the hashtag #RawPolitics on Twitter and Facebook. You can also find me, and you can write directly to me and search for us on Skype as well. We'd like to see you, as I was saying. All right, before we go, we have time for tonight's Raw Moment, which comes from the UK's House of Commons, where a Tory MP has hit out at a junior colleague who appeared to suggest that he was wearing a wig. Let's take a look.
Michael Fabricant, as ever, that's great news for the West Midlands. Economic policy. But now, will my right honourable friend welcome the new Birmingham Airport Master Plan, which addresses its growth in services for businessmen and holiday makers for the West Midlands? And will she commit the government to work with the airport to help it expand its long-haul route network?
And a quick comment there, Brian.
If you're going to wear a wig, wear a good one. The worst he could do is become president of the United States with a wig like that.
Well, at least he wasn't denying it, was he? He wasn't.
I don't think he could deny it.
No.
I don't know, was it a wig? Do we know if it was a wig or is it a wig or not?
I think an educated guess is
an educated guess, yeah. This reminds me of when they mocked the German leader, Gerhard Schröder, for dyeing his hair a little bit brownish. Yeah. But it basically is pointing out them as vain.
Yes, but he had like 40 shades of brown over various series of photographs. Yeah. This is one consistent
This is one
wig,
consistent, yeah.
Yeah, is it this fun at the Parliament here?
Well, we're speaking about double standards to women, but sorry.
This is what we're doing.
What are we doing there now?
Yeah, so again, don't forget, we do want to hear from you. Your call is coming up next. We really would like you to start calling us, getting in touch on social media. All the information will be available on Twitter and Facebook. Just look for me there. It's all there. Use the hashtag #RawPolitics. We'd love to hear from you. Good night.